Training camp is moving along here in Jacksonville, Florida, and I'll tell you why. The secondary is being helped out by the tight coverage, but the offense is saying, nah, man, we're going to come right there with you. And the offense is doing that. We'll talk about it today here on Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Your team every day. We thank you for making us your first listen. I am Tony Wiggins, the host of the Locked On Jaguars podcast. I can't say it any better than she did. It is your team every day. Make sure you don't miss an episode, and I'm going to tell you exactly how and where you can find us. One is on YouTube at the Locked On Jaguars page. Make sure you get over there, hit subscribe, hit that like button, and then make sure you hit that bell so that you receive notifications and you do not miss an episode. And then wherever you get your podcast, like if you listen to them when you're at work or you're driving in the car, please make sure you tap in every single day to Locked On Jaguars so you do not miss an episode wherever that might be. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Shout out to all of the everydayers who join us every single day on Locked On Jaguars. You could be an everydayer too. All you got to do is join us every single day. Shout out my man KT for hollering at me today and saying he's an everydayer out at practice. I appreciate that. All right, I'm going to let you know what we're going to do. We got mailbag. Good mailbag. A lot of interesting questions from the fans. That's in segment 3. Segment 2, we're actually going to talk to a content creator who is a fan. We're going to do a little banter going back and forth. I interact with him awful lot on social media, and I wanted to make sure that we had him on the show. So he's going to ask me some questions. I'm going to ask him some. We're going to have a general conversation and what it's going to do. Hopefully it'll reflect how you feel about this team. First, though, I want to talk about the secondary and how it has actually helped Trevor Lawrence, the offense, and this team, and how I think it's going to help everyone moving forward. Here's what's going on. That coverage is tight. I was out there today, man, and those windows are super, super, super small, and it is forcing Trevor Lawrence and it is forcing Mac Jones and C.J. Beathard to have to make hard and difficult throws. Early on in camp, specifically, we thought that the offense was just flat out being dominated, and they probably were. But as I was talking to my man, Striving for Lot, who is in the Jaguar social media department, we were discussing it, and we were saying, you know what, bro? That's good for the team, because now what you have noticed, if you've been to practice, and that's only media members and any fans that happen to have showed up, if you have been to practice, you'll see and you'll understand exactly what we mean, especially if you've watched it day after day after day after day. And what you'll notice is there's just nowhere to throw the ball. And the quarterbacks have adjusted to that stress. And I can't say it enough that you have seen guys, you're either going to step up or you're going to fold, right? Guys have really, really been stepping up. And what I mean by that is folks are catching the ball. The quarterbacks are throwing the ball exactly where it needs to be, as opposed to where they want to go with it and then having it getting picked off. DBs aren't out of position. This is what, when you think about something that Ryan Nielsen said yesterday, the defensive coordinator, says, hey, look, you ain't going to make every play, but you have to win every rep. And what that means is by being there, by making it difficult for the other team to actually complete these passes. It is truly amazing how they have forced the offense to make adjustments. And the adjustments that had to be made were folks just had to make better decisions. They had to make better throws. They had to have more patience. And that's exactly what the quarterbacks have done. They have been helped by certain people. One of those people I want to highlight and point to today is Devin Duvernay, who was brought here, and I'm going to just assume that Devin Duvernay was brought here to be what Jamal Agnew had been. And look, let me tell you, I don't know if you've noticed it. If you haven't seen him in person, he's a powerhouse, man. Devin Duvernay is about 5'11", but he's legitimately over 205 pounds. He is quick. He is shifty, but it's with more power. It's with more power than we were used to seeing with Jamal Agnew. And he makes tough contested throws, and he runs through his routes. He caught some deep balls today. He caught some stuff that's underneath. He's going to be a problem. I was sitting there talking to Joe Coward from 1010XL, and we were wondering, is it etched in stone that Parker Washington will be fourth? Because we heard Doug Peterson mention him just yesterday about how he's done a good job, and we've all mentioned it. We've noticed it. Duvernay was brought here to play, and Devin Duvernay, man, let me tell you something. It's going to be very, very interesting. Let me just tell you, it's going to be very, very interesting watching Devin Duvernay along with Parker Washington when it comes time for them to compete. I expect Brian Thomas Jr. To do some good things. The thing is, though, if he starts to seem like, because he does have a little bit of a rookie body, it doesn't mean he's skinny. It doesn't mean that he doesn't have the goods. It's just that you notice there's a difference between him and Gabe Davis and Christian Kirk. They've been doing NFL stuff, right? They've got this beef program in the NFL. They look a little bit more sturdy, right? And Thomas Jr. is a little bit taller, and he's just built a little bit differently. He's in great shape. Don't get me wrong. Dude looks like Usain Bolt. But the thing is it's just going, if it takes some time and there's a little bit of an adjustment, and for a while, if he just has to be the big play guy or the guy that they throw quick slants to or little bubble screens to try to use his athleticism, if they need a whole bunch of dirty work done, they got Parker Washington and they have Devin Duvernay. The wide receiver position, along with the DBs, are positions that are showing you that they're not wasting anything. They're not wasting the talent. They're not wasting opportunities. They're not assuming that all of these guys are going to be everything that they were drafted to be or everything that they want them to be. They want more and more competition, and that's exactly what they have. I mean, we've been talking about all of these we talked about Seth Williams just yesterday. And I think when you see these guys that are fighting for those 6th, 7th positions at these groups, when they start to make plays, this is what I love. Immediately the next day, other guys step up, even guys with contracts that are pretty much guaranteed to be here. They step up and say, oh, no, I ain't going to let you take my lunch money. Cooks, number 14, had the catch of the day on a deep ball where he had to make an adjustment, and he went up and mossed the dude. I think the guy that he got, I think it was Chris Braswell that he got today, looked very, very good. So Elijah Cooks, that is. So you're seeing more and more competition, but that competition it was necessary, and it's been necessitated by the fact that these DBs are right in their chest. They're knocking balls down. They're competing. If the wide receivers continue to play the way that they played today and the quarterbacks continue to play the way that they played, I'm telling you, man, this team is going to improve. Talk to Shad for a minute today. Shad wants to win, man. A little off-the-record conversation. He's just ready for all of this to result, everything that's been happening, whether it's with the stadium, the practice facility, the free agents, draft picks. He's just ready for this stuff to win, so he's chomping at the bit for that. All right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to talk a little bit more about Devin Duvernay and what he could potentially do in the return game, as well as competing for the 4th receiver spot that my friend Joe thinks he's going to get. We're going to have a little Q&A with my man Toriano. He's a content creator, and he is a fan of the Jaguars also. He used to give me the business sometimes. We're going to talk to him in segment 2. We're going to talk to him about the Jaguars. It's going to be basically representative of all of the questions that you all have for me. It seems like a smorgasbord or a buffet of the questions that everyone has for me all the time. He always asks me too. So I told him I was going to have him on whenever the time is appropriate, and no better appropriate time today since training camp has gotten going. And the main thing about it is now that they have pads on, it's not, basically flag football anymore. And so we could get some real meat off that bone. We're going to talk about that. And remember, we got mailbag from the fans. Y'all hit me up with some really, really good questions. Some of them I got at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. All right. So we're going to make sure that we hit all of that, talk to that. We have my man Toriano on when we get into segment 2 here on Locked On Jaguars. First, I have to let you know about the Gametime app, man. Let me tell you this. There are some people that will tell you when you wait till the last minute to do something, you hear this thing your parents and your teachers used to say, and it goes like this. Don't let your lack of planning constitute an emergency on my part. Well, my grandmother didn't really use the word constitute, but you get my point. You will hear none of that nonsense at Gametime, man, because Gametime is where you can get tickets to anything you want: concerts, Major League Baseball tickets, wrestling events, plays, comedy shows, whatever. And they actually specialize and prioritize last minute deals where you can save up to 60% off buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, etc. You get views from all the seats of the venue, the lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protection, job loss protection, and all of that. All you got to do is download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Take the guesswork out of buying Major League Baseball and concert tickets with Gametime. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL, LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price. It's guaranteed. All right, segment number 2 here on Locked On Jaguars. We're at your team every day. We thank you for making us your first listen. And now there's my guy, Toriano. We're going to bring him in. We're going to talk a little bit Jaguars as soon as I get this background correct. And I think I just might do it right now. There it is. I'm trying to get it together for you guys. But no, Toriano's my dude. We've been going at it on social media now for a long time. How you doing, bro?
I'm doing good. How about you, Tony?
Doing real good. Glad to finally have you on. First of all, tell everybody where you work, because you ain't just some fan I grabbed out of the middle of nowhere. I ain't just come sliding through your job and say, hey, you want to do a podcast? No, everybody always asks me to do a podcast. Go ahead and let everybody know exactly some of the work that you've been doing and where they can find you.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I have some experience in journalism. I've worked with Fandom Wire as well as Agents of Fandom in the multimedia space. I just graduated with my communications and media degree, so I'm getting into the sports field. Recently just shadowed with Jamal St. Cyr, and I have internship experience with Michael Hugh, the former GM of the Jacksonville Jaguars. So I have experience working with pro players as well as shadowing in the journalism field.
That's right. See, so what we're going to do here, we're going to introduce you to my audience here on Locked On Jaguars, and maybe I can learn a thing or two from you. Have you been impressed so far? Did you want to jump off the ledge last week when you found out that Trevor Lawrence was throwing picks to the wrong people? And how do you feel now that things have sort of calmed down a little bit?
For me, it was more so just weathering the storm. We know that, as soon as training camp starts, it's really just getting the kinks of the offense out the way, learning new installs, getting things, you're adding new players to the team, getting comfortable with receivers, new running backs. We had some the similar stable of running backs that we have in the same system for the Jaguars this year. So just adding new content to the offense and adding new players. We have a completely new wide receiver room outside of Christian Kirk. So just adding the rookies. Joshua Cephas has been impressive, as well as Brian Thomas Jr., of course, the first round selection. So I don't think there was anything, in my opinion, that I was concerned about. Obviously we want to eliminate the red zone turnovers, but for me, I think it was just the beginning of training camp for Trevor. So I'm excited to see him perform.
So it sounds like to me you were thinking the same things. And I know you follow my show. You listen every day, and we go back and forth every day. You were thinking that one of the bigger issues was the red zone offense, specifically the turnovers.
Exactly.
And I also count turnover on downs as turnovers because they do that a lot when they get down there, because they're chasing touchdowns because they don't think they can win with field goals. Along with that, what was some of your other major concerns that you had coming into this season with the Jaguars?
My major concern was the run offense. We were one of the dead to last run offenses in the league, whether it comes to pass protection or in the run scheme. The outside the tackle, ETN is phenomenal. I believe he's top 5 in terms of getting outside the tackle. But in the interior, we had no push. Obviously, the major concern was Fortner. We've upgraded with Mitch Morse this year. So I think there will be a bigger splash inside the tackles. But for me, the run game was the biggest detriment to our offense last year.
All right, I'm going to give you a chance. I'm going to give you a chance to do right now for the next couple of minutes what you always do to me on social media. You can shoot and ask me anything. In fact, I'm going to go behind the veil a little bit. Toriano hit me up and was like, what do you want me to talk about? What do you want me to ask you? I said, no, we don't do that here on Locked On Jaguars. You know what we do? We keep, because I want it, the first time I say it or the first time I think it is going to be authentic and it's going to be organic, and I want the people to see it. So I don't want y'all to think I don't do my homework, because I absolutely do. I do my homework a little bit differently than everybody else. So I'm going to let you shoot and represent the entire fan base and represent you. I ain't going to tell you get on my nerves, because you don't get on my nerves. Some people do, because your questions are very, very smart and intelligent. Go ahead and interact with me the same way we do on social media. And you can, I don't care what it is, bro. Just make it Jaguar related. You could ask me anything about what I've seen, and I'm going to tell you.
Yes, sir. First question. Like we just talked about the offensive line. In terms of our top 5, when it comes to Anton Harrison, Brandon Scherf, Mitch Morse, Ezra Cleveland, as well as Scam, where do you think we stack up in terms of the top 32? Do you think we're in the latter half? Do you think we're in the middle of the pack? I personally don't think we're in the top 10, but I just want to pick your brain a little bit to see where you think we rank in terms of the top 32.
Without Luke Fortner in the lineup, I think they're top 16. They're in the top half in terms of pass blocking. Run blocking, that's a little bit, it leaves a little bit, I got to wait, because you can run block on your own 30-yard line or your 40. You ain't going to know if team can run block until they get to the end of the game when they're trying to milk the clock, or on 3rd and 4th down, especially in the red zone, when they're trying to keep the sticks moving. So it's not, to me, it's more of a matter of, I always say, can you run when you want to, and can you run when you have to? And so for me, that question won't really be answered until they get all greased up into the season. Like I said, you can run the ball when you're on your own 30-yard line, or you can run the ball when you're down 10 points with 2 minutes to go. But can you run the ball when you're ahead, or can you run the ball when a team is challenging you and saying, go ahead and try to run it? We don't think you can.
Yes, sir. Okay. My next question would be, there's 2 premium players that we have next to sign to extensions. Both are devalued positions in safety and running back. If you were in the GM spot, who would you rather extend first? Would it be Andre Cisco or Travis Etienne Jr.?
I'd extend Cisco, and here's why. Because you can fit your option, Travis Etienne. That's what it is. You fit your option, and he's going to have to play. I would do Cisco, though, because someone, as a matter of fact, is a real good friend of mine who's coaching in college, who used to be a scout here in Jacksonville, told me 10 years ago when he was here on the field, he said, free safety that can play single high is the most difficult thing other than quarterback to find. And I was like, really? He said, yeah. And he said that, he says, because, and this is when they were still making a transition from college to the NFL. The college game, the offenses in the NFL weren't running as much college stuff as they are now. But he said they aren't teaching them in college to play on the back end the way that they play in the NFL. It's a lot of 7-on-7 type stuff. Well, the NFL, you almost got to have a computer brain and the ability in order to play. The problem is people got spoiled with, I would say Ed Reed, but Baltimore didn't really do too much of that. But yeah, Ed Reed was an example, but folks got spoiled with Earl Thomas. And they thought that everybody, well, if Earl Thomas can do some of the things that Ed Reed does, we can just find another Earl Thomas. No, Earl Thomas, those people don't grow on trees. So expecting guys to do that, I think Jesse Bates does a real good job at it. And I think Andre Cisco has the capability and the ability to do it. It's just that he has to stay healthy. But I would extend him. I think it's worth it because I think guys like that are very, very hard to find. One more.
All right. In terms of going back into the O-line, what would you do with Walker Little in this situation that we're in right now? He provides a lot of flexibility to the O-line, having experience, whether it be in training camp or in practice, playing the guard position, as well as playing the swing tackle spot. Would you try to give him an extension? Would you trade him? Where is he more valuable?
Well, I wouldn't trade him. Because if you trade him, I think you're trading the best version of him that you've ever had, right? And you need that production this year. And you never know if Cam goes down, you'll need him to play. And then after he plays, then that'll determine whether or not it's worth it to keep him. I think they're going to offer him something, but I also believe that he has to be honest, as honest to himself as the team is with him about his ability, about what he is in the league. Is he always a swing guy? He's going to have a 10, 12-year career in the league. Mm-hmm. It's just that when you're a five-star recruit and your dream is to get to the NFL, everyone probably thinks they're going to be the next Tony Baselli. And then when it doesn't work, it's hard to make a player believe that he's not that, right? So yes. I think it's going to be about some self-awareness with him. And I think the Jaguars should keep him and then make a decision on it in the offseason and see. Let him test the market and say, hey, this is what we'll offer you. If you test the market and somebody else, if it's close, I think he'll probably come back. I think he likes it here, especially if the Jaguars have a real good, successful season. All right, Toriano, you're going to be hosting a podcast one of these days soon. So just make sure you invite me on, and I'll come on your podcast whenever you start it, because I think you're good. I think you're smart. I think I really wanted to do this because you kind of encapsulate and represent all of the Jaguar fans with the questions you have. And I do mailbag every week, but I wanted to do a live mailbag with you. And you're the first one. So appreciate you, man. Appreciate you joining me on. And it won't be the last time we hear from you here on Locked On.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I appreciate you for the opportunity.
All right. My man, Toriano Newkirk is a budding young media. I ain't going to say star yet because we gotta work you up to it. But he's a budding young media person who has a lot of legitimate questions. And going by the questions he just asked, you guys now know exactly why I wanted to have him on here, because the questions are always super intelligent. The questions are always things that I thought other fans would think and wanted to hear, and I did not disappoint. And I'm glad I had my man on. If you want to keep up with the rest of Locked On plus the NFL, if you're watching Fox and ESPN all day on your TV and you got to turn down the volume with all that shouting, then make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I got questions from y'all that I am now going to get to when we get to segment number 3 in Locked On Jaguars in just a second. I'll let y'all know first about FanDuel. I know those sports aren't sporting like they always do, and baseball is rolling along, but normally you got baseball, football, basketball, and everything else to all wager on at one time. But don't worry, if you love sports, you love sports. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone, every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most of your summer. Now, make sure you find out what these ERAs are from those guys coming out of that bullpen, because it could mess you up if you don't know. You think your team's going to win, and then they bring in some dude out of the bullpen with a 6 ERA, and your bet goes bad. Head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most of your summer now, because they're hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone daily. FanDuel is official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. All right, third final segment here on Locked On Jaguars, where it's your team every day, and we thank you for making us your first listen. As I always do, I collect mailbag questions from fans. Toriano's one of those dudes. I normally do it, but today he was here live and in the flesh, right? There are some other people with questions. I'm going to get right to it right now. I got to crawl up to it, man. Usually I have 15 or 16 of these questions, but for some reason I had a whole bunch more, so I might not get to them, especially if I've already responded to some of them and I've answered those questions straight up, or just referred you to a recent show that I've done, and I think that has the answer for you. My man Travis Holmes, that's right, Travis of Big Cat Country, asked me, What Jaguars offensive line or defensive line player has caught your eye this week? That will be number 99, Mr. Ledbetter. I think, and someone reminded me, I said he's had a great camp. They drafted people to replace him and signed people to replace him. Joe Coward, once again, reminded me, he said, but he did that last year. Yeah, but he didn't fold. And the thing is you want to see guys when competition is there, especially with a new coach. He did not fold. So Jeremiah Ledbetter, who's an 8-year pro now, 6'3", 299, he might end up being expendable. But let me tell you something. He has played well, and they're giving everybody a chance to win. Andre Winfield, my brother, said, who could a surprise final cut at roster time be for the final 53? At this point, I don't know if you can necessarily qualify anybody as a surprise cut. And I hate doing this to people, but I'm going to say Luke Fortner. If they find somebody else that can play backup center, Luke Fortner. Don't think it's going to happen, but that's the one guy that I do believe has an issue. Tony Wilkinson asked, which rookie will make the biggest impact year one? That's a funny question. I'm glad you asked, because we just mentioned earlier that Brian Thomas Jr. might end up being just that big play guy if he's not just that every down player this year. If that happens, then I think the rookie that makes the biggest impact is going to be Jarian Jones, because I think he's going to play a lot. I think he's going to play a lot at the nickel, and I think he thrives off of adversity and being able to overcome it. So I think Jarian Jones would definitely be that. Jay Rand wants to know extend, tag, or let walk. Now, we just kind of went through that with Toriano. I believe ETN, you can fit your option. Cisco would be extend. Walker Little would be the walk. That's the person. And finally, Lewis. Lewis asked me if I like Jenkins barbecue. Lewis, yeah, but I also like any barbecue, unless it's really, really terrible. And I have had some bad barbecue. Let me tell you, I've gone and had some barbecue where it tastes like lighter fluid. And I didn't want to tell the person. I just told them that I probably couldn't finish it because, I was just having a bad day with diverticulitis. But really, what I was having a bad day was consuming food that tastes like gasoline. So, yeah, that's it. And I'm glad y'all asked me those questions. I'm going to get Lewis because he caught me by surprise with that one. However, today's episode of Locked On Jaguars, it's been a lot of fun. It's always good to be in touch with the fans. From training camp today now, things got a little bit more measured. Weren't as many big plays, weren't as many small plays, but there's a lot of competition between the wide receivers and the DBs. Got a little chippy with Tank Bigsby. I think he got up in Josh Allen's face because he got knocked down. And I don't mind chippy. I think that's good. As long as, in the words of Press Taylor earlier today, Press said, we want to be physical, but we don't want to be combative. Combative gets you penalties, in my opinion. So you want to be physical. You want to let everybody know you don't play the radio, but yet still you don't want to get kicked out of games. So, yeah, man, a lot of fun here today. Training camp continues. We'll get to it tomorrow. No injuries of note to report. That's a good thing. I even hate using the I word here on this podcast, but all of those things, training camp's going fine. I do believe after last week, there was a lot of talk about the offense, and there was a lot of talk about what they were doing and this plan. They told you what the plan was. The plan was to put as much stress and pressure on them and give them different looks so they'll be ready for game day. And I think the players have answered that. I'll be very interested to hear what Doug Peterson says about their ability to answer that call. You guys have answered the call for me, so I'm going to answer the call for you. Thank you for making Locked On Jaguars your first listen today. Your second listen should be Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast. The draft dudes, Joe Marino and Kyle Krabs, take you inside the front office. And you think I'm good at this, you go listen to those dudes, man. You'll understand why I always brag about them both. Always prepared. They know the league. They know the players. They know every single team in the league, and they're going to break it down for you. They're going to make you smarter every single day. So stay up to date on training camp and positional battles as the season draws near. Locked On NFL Scouting is available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, it's my pleasure to bring you the show, and I'll be right back here having some more pleasure tomorrow talking to y'all about the Jaguars as we get to Thursday of training camp, and we're getting real close to that first game. So everybody is anxious to see what this team looks like on the field. Until then, you guys take care. I'll see you tomorrow. Take care of each other, and we'll see you on Locked On Jaguars.